I have the opportunity now to welcome and introduce our first panel to kick things off with some really excellent insights on skills-based employment and second chances from a group of CEOs who are founding member companies of the Second Chance Business Coalition and have been leading in this space and work. The panel will be moderated by Emily Wilkins, who's the D.C. correspondent for CNBC, where she covers Congress, key regulatory issues, and policies that impact American businesses and the economy. Our panelists include John Stankey, the chairman of the board and CEO of AT&T. He's been CEO and president since July of 2020 and was elected chairman in February of 2025. We also have Tamara Lundgren, chairman, president, and CEO of Radius Recycling, where she's been president and CEO and a director of the company since 2008 and chairman of the board since 2020. And also Peter Quigley, president and CEO of Kelly. Kelly has been CEO since 2019, and under his leadership has been championing today's temporary workers and best-in-class experiences for organizations. And all three of these leaders I know have exceptional insights to share from their commitment to this work. As Dane just shared, that CEO leadership really sets a tone across an organization. So again, welcome on behalf of all of today's partners, and please join me in welcoming our first panelists.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. As mentioned, I'm Emily Wilkins, and I'm really excited to dig in to the topic with our panel of incredible CEOs today. And I think I'm just going to start off with maybe the 30,000-foot question, is talk to me a little bit about how your companies and why your companies embrace second chance hiring. And John, do you want to start? We'll just go right on down the row.
The case was made as we were walking into the room about where demand is right now in the workforce and supply is. And I start out every day hoping that at some point my company achieves the goal of having our workforce actually represent the communities that we do business in. And we sell a product and service that literally every American in some way, shape, or form can use in their life. And we'll be better as a company when our workforce actually lines up exactly in the way that we serve our markets. And so when you look at a company that hires, we probably do roughly 30,000 individuals a year. It's a great opportunity for us to achieve that goal. We've been on skills-based hiring for a long period of time, and this was a natural extension. We kind of examined our practices of why people were falling out of the funnel at the front end of skills-based hiring, and screening questions like criminal history was one of those things. And we said, why should it be any different than anything else? So we do blind processes up front to increase the size of that funnel so we get the best qualified people. At the end of the day, when I talk about my job, CEO is my vanity title. The truth of my job is I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer, because it's all about what kind of talent we have in the company and how well it operates. And this is just a natural way to get better qualified talent and meet and demand our needs and support our needs that we have.
So thank you. So similar to what John said, we looked at it really as a business case proposition. The labor pool that we needed to do our business, which is in the steel manufacturing and metals recycling space, was shrinking. So we needed to find more avenues to recruit talent. We found a demographic, the second chance demographic, that had a huge component. About 30% in this demographic are looking for work, and we're not being given access to jobs. And so we then figured out that we could develop the framework and the methodologies to identify that talent, reach out to that talent, recruit that talent, and retain that talent. And it was very synergistic, a big group of people who wanted jobs, a large organization like ours who needed that talent. And then there's the harder to measure, but still so important, what it does to enhance our culture. Because by hiring and seeking out second chance individuals, we're really reinforcing our culture. We're really walking the talk that we see you. We know we can identify your talent. We can help you reach your potential. And you also get that what I call lend a hand, reinforcement, where when these individuals decide they want to share their stories with their colleagues, it's a lend a hand. They are helping their teammates learn where training and learning is necessary, and looking out for each other. So it's a culture enhancer as well.
Yeah, all well said. It's not only at Kelly for us. We place almost 400,000 people in jobs every year, working with thousands of companies across the country. And really what we do is connect people to work. And our customers require talent, and finding talent can be challenging. And so for us, second chance hiring is not just the right thing to do, it's also good business. Helping our clients find talent, as John said. And so what we have been working on is trying to break down barriers that prevent more people from getting access to meaningful work. And second chance hiring is a prime example of that. You heard the stats in the opening. The number of people in our workforce that have some blemish on their record that shouldn't automatically disqualify them from serving in a job. And in our programs that we set up with companies, we measure very specifically things like turnover rate and cycle times and attendance and reassignment and mobility. And the data are unequivocal. The second chance employees are loyal, they're hardworking, the amount of turnover is significantly lower, and our own data suggests that people believe that automatically disqualifying people from jobs is not a good practice. And so if you're in business and you want to attract people to your brand, having fair chance hiring programs, our research shows is good business.
I think that's sort of a really great opener as to sort of why you guys started thinking about second chance hiring and some of the benefits you've seen from it. I've got a couple of questions, although I want to keep this in a conversational flow. So if I ask someone a question, you're like, she should have asked me. I have a great answer. Feel free to jump in. But John, I'll throw you the first one, which is if companies are thinking about implementing second chance hiring, talk to me about some of the challenges that you ran into as you implemented that. How did you work around those challenges?
I don't think our challenges are really any different than they are in our general hiring practices, to be candid with you. Getting over the hump of saying, do you absolutely, with an employee who fills out a requisition request to bring somebody in, are you being really clear on what you need them to do the job, or are you inflating skills? That's true for skills-based hiring, and it's true for second chance hiring. And so training hiring managers to be really diligent around qualifications and thinking at a composite level of work, even going a step further, in some cases restructuring work to open up a source pool where maybe you can compartmentalize certain capabilities that don't require higher degrees of education that then allow you to have a bigger source pool to pull from. We've had to do some of that. That's true whether it's second chance hiring or any other skills-based hiring. And we've had to coach, teach, do workshops on that. That has been probably one of the greatest opportunities for us to open up. Putting the processes in place where you're screening in a non-discriminatory fashion for skills or any other characteristic of hiring is actually fairly straightforward, because people who do that repetitively every day. So you can put controls in place, you can teach, you can train, and the back-end process on that is a lot easier to manage than getting people to put the right kind of qualification requirements in place and speccing the job. And I would say that's probably been the biggest focus area to open up the funnel a little bit for us and start to increase. The final thing is when we're doing the assessment after the job is offered, and we're looking at the background, and if there is in fact a criminal history, it's being realistic about how much risk are you willing to take, and you have to get into some judgment areas. So somebody who had an issue that was 8 years ago probably needs to be looked at a little bit differently than somebody who maybe had an issue a year ago, and the circumstances around that, and really taking the time to delve into kind of what the story is around that to make an informed decision. We've had to improve our ability to do that. Anytime you have judgment in business, it's a hard thing.
For sure. And John, I also know that AT&T has, I believe, partnered with a number of local organizations, so you can sort of make sure that you're really reaching this demographic, providing them internet, providing them computers, providing them a space where they can actually come and apply for some of these jobs. Can you talk a little bit about that process and how that's gone to widening the pipeline?
Well, sure. Nobody can get employment in this country right now if you can't get access to the internet, and if you can't be conversant skills, it's going to be very, very difficult to actually apply for a job. And so we set up connected learning centers in metropolitan areas. It's part of what we've been doing with our $5 billion commitment to make sure every American has access to the internet. If you can't get it at home or you can't get it in your apartment, you can come to one of these centralized locations to get access to a computer, to talk with people who can coach you through the skills that are necessary. And that's as simple as maybe filling out a job application, but it goes to even further capabilities, like people finishing certifications for certain skill categories and coming in every day to be able to basically buttress their qualifications. And we've had some really, really good success stories that have come out of this with individuals that have used that as their entry point to come in, get into the application process, have a stronger application, get coached on certain things they need to do through the interview process, and then ultimately land the job. And as Tamara said, get that job opportunity where they feel proud about it, and then their loyalty and commitment to that organization that gave them the chance tends to be deeper than the average hire. And that's always a good virtuous cycle when that occurs.
Yeah, and Tamara, I wanted to come to you to talk because you mentioned culture, and I'm really interested to see a little bit of how you've seen this culture play out with these the individuals who went through second chance hiring. I mean, talk to me a little bit about how having those individuals as part of your company has changed the overall culture.
Well, we started our journey in 2015 because we did see this shrinking pool. And our first step was what we called banning the box. So when you applied for a job, there was a box that said, have you ever committed a felony? You check that box and the application process would stop. So we banned the box. And as John was saying, we started to utilize judgment in taking a look at the candidate, the severity of their crime, how long ago it was, whether there were multiple offenses, and we had to use judgment, and we worked with partners to do that. We actually started in 2019 with Dave's Killer Bread. Is anybody familiar with that?
I had some last week.
Yeah. Yeah. So my company is headquartered in Portland, Oregon, and Dave's Killer Bread is out of Oregon. And then when Business Roundtable formed the Second Chance Business Coalition, we became a founding member of that. And so that process has, our HR group, our recruiting talent has come along in that process. And we hire about 8% of our new hires every year are second chance candidates. And they have taken jobs across 80% of our locations, which are across the U.S. So it's a broad-based applicant pool, and we've been able to hire those individuals across the country. But from a culture perspective, we do a lot in terms of training, and we have created a Build a Better Future where we offer hundreds of online courses. We've had and this is since 2021, we've had 6,000 courses taken. 10% of the individuals who take them have been able to advance. And so, again, it's about walking the talk. And so many of these individuals are helping to train themselves. And then we invest in technology where we can assess the gaps, invest in training for that gap, and then measure about how, and assess has that training helped move you forward. So we're very pleased with the process. From a retention perspective, it is similar at the at the entry level for us, which is still higher than what we want. A lot of what we do is outside, very physical labor. I mean, there's only 3% of my workforce are only traditional office workers. So this is very, it's heavy industry, if you will. And so, so the physical part of the job is probably just as impactful to retention as any other piece. But really focusing in on reducing job abandonment. That's where the biggest part is. It's not policy violations or code of conduct violations, which is what I think most people will think initially would be the problem. It's just the discipline and commitment to showing up for work at a certain time and not abandoning the position.
Got it. I'm also curious, Tamara, if I can, because when I talk about culture, to a certain extent, I think everyone in this room definitely grasps the huge benefits that can come to society as a whole through second chance hiring. I'm also curious for your employees that don't come through that pipeline. You know, I can sort of see coming to work and sitting down next to someone who maybe, stole a roll of toilet paper from a grocery store 10 years ago. It's a little more difficult to think about coming into work and working side by side with someone who has an assault charge. And I'm wondering how you kind of manage that with your employees, how you talk about the Second Chance program, and how that's a part of the wider culture, not just for those who came through that pipeline, but for others who maybe, never thought that they'd be working next to someone who had a criminal conviction.
So first of all, when we hire someone, we don't identify the recruiting source. So it is up to that individual to share their story. And we rely on our judgment to make the assessment. There's a risk in hiring everyone for a whole variety of reasons. So this is up to the individual to share that story. We are very public. I mean, I'm here, but if you look at our annual reports and the like, we're very public about our support of the program. I talk about it in town halls or weekly communications and the like. So people know that we are recruiting second chance individuals, but they're not identified, they're not ostracized, and as I said, we haven't experienced code of conduct or policy violations, and we do experience code of conduct and policy violations, and I'm sure that there have been a few, but that has not colored the organization. And as I said, the way that we look at this is the severity of the crime, how long ago it occurred, and the frequency. And we take those issues, and then placing someone in a job, if the crime has been in handling cash, we'll put them in a different position. So you try not to create opportunities for recidivism.
Yeah, I would add what Tamara said. I have an old adage that you get 10 AT&T employees together, you have a mini microcosm of society. That's just the way it is, and that means all the good and the bad that comes with a mini microcosm of society. That's just the reality of running a large workplace. And I think an important thing is you have expectations and standards around culture and how you treat one another and how you behave and what you do. And there are no exceptions to that. And that's true. So when somebody walks through the door and they come to their job, this person in this chair is expected to behave like this person in this chair. And when that deal is broken, there isn't tolerance for it. And that's true for any employee, no matter what the circumstances are.
Peter, you've been too quiet down there.
Not at all.
If you want to jump off of that topic, go ahead. I also wanted to ask you about the Kelly 33 program and, of course, and some of the success that you've had with other companies, including Toyota, that you've worked with.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. But I will comment to echo what Tamara said. One of the surprising things that we found with companies that we work with to establish fair chance hiring programs is the collateral benefit to their culture for their non-second chance population. Because even though we don't recommend that you identify an individual as being a second chance hiree. They often will acknowledge that that's part of their history because they're talking over lunch or what have you, but the amount of goodwill that is created in the other part of the population of the workforce is really tangible and noticeable. So in terms of the culture, there's a benefit there. The Kelly 33 program, the 33 stems from the fact that 33% of the working age population has a blemish on their record. That's where Kelly 33 came from, as you heard in the opening. And we established Kelly 33 after I became CEO. Largely based on a very successful program we ran with Toyota, as Emily mentioned, in which they were having trouble attracting people to their production facility in Georgetown, Kentucky, and we worked with them to establish a program where we screened 1,200 individuals that had a blemish on their record. We ultimately placed 700, 800 of those individuals who were qualified for the job. The turnover was significantly lower than the general population. The attendance was better. There was not one individual, not one, that was terminated for a violation related to their criminal conduct. So it just goes that these are people who want another chance, and if given the chance, they are loyal, they're dedicated, and we work with companies not only on second chance hiring, but also on breaking down other barriers. There are a number of companies, thousands of companies that have barriers that prevent people from getting access to meaningful work that they don't even know why they have the policy. A lot of these will prevent people with autism or other neurodiverse individuals from getting jobs. Veterans who don't have a 4-year degree but have been responsible for teams of hundreds aren't qualified for a program management job because they don't have a 4-year degree. Drug policies that may have made sense in 1975 when they were put in place, but they're still in existence, and nobody can really explain why the policy exists. So we work with companies as part of the, not just Kelly 33, which is fair chance hiring, but program we call Equity at Work, which is to try to break down any barrier, unjust barrier anyway, that prevents more people from getting access to meaningful work. And Toyota is one case, but we have other examples. We worked with a home decor company during their seasonal holiday ramp. They were way behind their production targets. And we established a fair chance program, and in a very short amount of time, we had 200 people on the production line. They caught up to their production targets, and they hired a lot of those people on a permanent basis because they're loyal, they show up, and they're good workers.
Peter, I'm wondering, a lot of the stories that we've heard are from companies that are struggling to fill open roles. And I'm wondering, Peter, just because you are so passionate about this, because your company does so much for it, can you talk a little bit about what pitch you would make to someone who says, well, our hiring is fine, we get lots of applicants for positions, we're happy with the people we have, why should I be open to looking at second chance and looking at things like Ban the Box?
Well, talent is hard to come by, and turnover is expensive. And, even if somebody believes they have a really successful hiring workforce program, chances are it could be better. And second chance hiring is a perfect complement to an existing program. And we work with companies to encourage them because, as John mentioned, this is an incredibly wide talent pool that exists, that's available, and working with these individuals and working with hiring managers to understand how to bring them on board and assimilate them into the general workforce can be an extremely productive contribution to a company's performance.
Absolutely. John, I wanted to go back to you here and talk a little bit. I mean, I think Peter kind of laid out, and Tamara and yourself as well, that a lot of these individuals who are hired, they do tend to be good employees. They're dedicated. But I'm wondering, is there anything too that AT&T has started doing to really make sure that these employees are retained, that they are able to develop their skills, and that they're able to kind of grow within the company?
Yeah, there's some really good stories. In fact, one of our employees was recently featured in People magazine, and it wasn't a second chance hire in this case, but it was a skills-based hire of a homeless individual. And I think what's the essence of the story is the essence to your answer to your question. The individual came in with an opportunity to be supported in everything that AT&T and the employee community has to offer. Not only the opportunity for employment and meaningful work, but the support of their peers, the opportunity to get access to health care, mental care, capabilities to organize financial services in their lives, what they can do to further their education through tuition assistance and credentialing. And when somebody comes into an ecosystem of that support, they have an opportunity to change the trajectory of their life. And I think having that network or that web of support, which are all the things that if we looked out societally and said, if our communities did all this, would we have less homelessness or less recidivism in criminal history and all those kinds of things? I think the answer is probably yes. And so I would say you have to look at this as an ecosystem of support and lifting these individuals up, and they become your best, their best promoters and the best advertisement for your brand when that occurs. And I think that's what's been able to give us success, because we do a very nice job of not only paying our employees a good living wage that allows them to attain middle-class status, but they're supported with a lot of other capabilities that are necessary to deal with life as it is today, which is challenging and stressful for many people.
Yeah. And I'm hearing a lot of overlap, I think, between skills-based hiring and just trying to make sure that you're looking at just beyond someone's maybe academic or the previous job that they had. Tamara, can you talk a little bit about kind of how you think about skills-based hiring and maybe how you would encourage those whose companies don't do skills-based hiring but are interested in it? How do they get started in something like that?
So we look now at competencies, not just credentials. And I think that's the big shift for us. And for us, it goes to the core of what we do. We're a 120-year-old company that started recycling metal, and that's still the bulk of what we do. And so seeing value and seeing potential that's overlooked by others is core to who we are. And really aligns with skills-based hiring and second chance hiring. So for us, when we rolled out a focused skills-based hiring program, we first started changing the mindset to let's be really clear-eyed about what the skills are that are needed for the job, irrespective of what you bring. What does the job really require, particularly in today's world when you can leverage technology and do other things. So that was number one. Number two was then really adjusting the hiring practice so that you could match the talent against the skills program. Third is being able to create the training, the resources to help people learn on their own or learn within a team so that they can advance themselves. So I mentioned our Building a Better Future program, which is a lot of training programs across everything from finance functions to production processes to metallurgy to a whole host of what we do. We have a huge take-up of people who undertake those courses and advance their careers. And one of the things that we say to every individual who we hire is we don't want you to come here for a job. We want you to come here for a career. We want you to be part of the Radius family and part of our future legacy. And then lastly, it is all about measurement. So comparing what what skills you thought the individual had or the individual thought he or she had against the resources and training against, do you still have that gap or have you narrowed that gap, and is this person ready for advancement?
I'd offer, we were talking a little bit about this backstage, but I think the United States probably has something to learn from certain countries in Europe about apprenticeship and skills training. We over-index societally here in investing our capital into secondary education and degree programs, and oftentimes flushing it down the toilet in the process of doing it. I hate to be so crass, but that's the reality of it. One of the things we do is we go into local community colleges and we work with them to build in trade and skill capabilities that allow people to go in for a reasonable amount of investment and time and then be qualified to do things like be hired into technicians that can work with electrical current, that can do data communications work. These are great jobs. They don't require 4-year degrees. They require some fundamental skills. But to do that in every community college system probably isn't optimal. We do it because we get good yield out of it. But a more rigorous approach around how we think about training trades and skills in this country and investing capital in that approach as opposed to subsidizing secondary education through loan programs exclusively, I think would be a good reorientation of our mindset and social characterization of what we think success is in our society, frankly.
Yeah, no, John, it's a great point. I mean, I used to cover education policy, and I remember talking to a number of individuals who say, there are so many apprenticeships out there and skills-based, and you don't have to go to college for 4 years and rack up a bunch of debt to make a really good living and meaningfully contribute to society. Peter, I just wanted to kind of see what your sense is on this, because, again, I remember writing about things like ban the box almost a decade ago now, as a lot of states were considering legislation. And I'm wondering what mind shift that you've started to see within companies, within the corporate world, when it comes to things like second chance hiring, skills-based hiring?
Yeah, it's a slow evolution. It actually, first, though, has to start with every company, and it started at Kelly when there was a particular individual that was a temporary employee working for Kelly, not working for one of our customers, and the manager wanted to hire this individual, but when we went through the screening process, it turned out he had a prior conviction. And our policy said we couldn't hire him. And this is 10 years ago, maybe. Fortunately, the manager was persistent, and she basically kept at us, and we changed our policy. And ultimately, that was the start of our evolution. We reviewed every one of our job descriptions, and again, while a 4-year degree may have been required for that particular job in 1967 when the job description was written, it isn't required in 2025. And so we basically cleaned our own house first because we didn't want to go to our customers and encourage them to clean their house if ours wasn't taken care of. And it's incredibly revealing, as I said earlier, when you talk to companies who want to increase the aperture to create more opportunity for talent, to increase the talent pool that they're drawing from, how many of them cannot explain why they have a hiring code, policy, what have you, that was written many, many years ago. And so companies are beginning to recognize the importance of opening that aperture, to increasing the talent pool that they draw from. And second chance hiring is a great way, and there are so many case studies. We have tons of them that reveal the benefits to organizations when they embrace and tap into the talent pool. I will echo what John said about the credentialing is really important to also acknowledge that there are a lot of jobs that can be done with some level of training, but not necessarily a 4-year degree. We work with community colleges in the communities to do much the same that John was talking about, to create curricula that are training people to jobs that are available, that are good-paying jobs that employers are having trouble filling. In Detroit, it's machinists. And you don't need a 4-year degree to be a machinist, but you do need some technical training because it's very sophisticated, high technology applications. And so we work with community colleges to do that and place people in jobs that are good, well-paying jobs, and they're contributing to their careers, to their families, and to their communities.
And Peter, going back to, and I know you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but when you talk about cleaning house and talk about looking at things that are really kind of holding you back from accessing the full talent pool, are there other things that you would recommend that folks take a look at in their hiring process, other questions that might have needed to be there in the 1960s that maybe don't need to be there today?
Yeah, sure. I would pretty much deconstruct all of the hiring practices that exist. And as John mentioned, training is so critical. Training hiring managers not to be tripped up by old tapes they have around what is a qualification or what a capability, what a skill is. And so really just having a thoughtful and comprehensive review of all policies that exist and stress test them, challenge them. Do we really need this? Is this preventing more people from getting access to the work that we have and the work that is available in the community?
Well, I see that we are almost out of time, and I know you guys have a really incredible program ahead today. So John, Tamara, Peter, just wanted to thank you guys all so much for coming, for giving us the time, and of course for Business Roundtable for putting on such an incredible event today. Thank you so much.